America is home to 33 million small businesses, the beating heart of communities across the country.
And proof that the American dream is still alive.
This is a show about those dreamers and doers and the communities they serve.
Their real life stories.
Their struggles and successes.
Their grit, determination, and passion.
And the people who fight
to keep their American dream alive.
I'm Alfredo Ortiz.
I'm Elaine Parker.
And it's time for another episode of Main Street Matters,
America's small business megaphone. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Main Street Matters, America's small business megaphone. I'm Elaine Parker, president of the Job Creators Network Foundation.
And I'm Alfredo Ortiz, CEO of the Job Creators Network.
Please subscribe to Main Street Matters at salempodcast.com or wherever you get your podcasts from. Today, we are going to be talking to Dina Rubio. She's the owner of Don Ramon Restaurant in West Palm Beach, Florida. Dina's going to tell us about her inspiring story of immigrating to America and achieving the American dream. But before we get to Dina, Alfredo, the CPI numbers came out this morning, and people are still paying a lot for gas, for groceries. It's still hard to find people to fill jobs. And, I mean, it's this inflation just isn't going away.
Yeah, unfortunately, it isn't, and it's just a very sticky situation in terms of where the inflation is and what the Federal Reserve can actually do to really influence it at this point. The biggest reason we got ourselves into this mess as a country is the Democrats. Their constant and reckless spending over the past several years have gotten us to the situation where there's just tremendous demand for goods and services, which has really driven up prices. And to your point, people are still paying a lot for less actually. And in fact, inflation overall over the past 2 years is still up over 15%. That means rents and gas and groceries. I mean, I walk into my grocery store and things that were like $8 for a bag of pistachios is now $12. I mean, it's just ridiculous what we're paying.
Yeah, rents are really expensive. I'm about to move my daughter to Tampa, and we've been looking at renting houses for her, apartments, and it is just so expensive. She's getting her first job out of college. And when she starts looking at how far that paycheck's going to go after rent, there's not going to be a lot left over. And of course, it's her first experience. As you know, it's always a shock when you graduate from college and you get your first check and you realize how many hands are in your little pot of gold. So there's a little bit of a wake-up call for her there, but it's very expensive.
And Elaine, yes, today's numbers actually show that core inflation, which is the Federal Reserve's key indicator, something they track all the time, that actually has increased year over year, and it's increasing faster than wage increases. So standard of living of the average American worker continues to deteriorate, and that's not a good thing.
No, I mean, look, it's amazing to go to the grocery store and, I always look for those BOGOs, buy one, get one, and try to stock up on things. And I know everybody else does too, but you walk out with, four bags and you've spent, $175. And it's a lot on the average American family. And, I'm not buying for that many people anymore because, my kids are at college. So it's just, I can totally relate to how people are feeling, and, I think, maybe the good news that came out of this morning is that, most people are leaning towards the Fed not raising interest rates. I mean, what are you thinking about the Fed this week and their meeting?
Well, last week I thought that there was a good possibility that they would take it up at least a quarter because of the hot jobs market, but maybe they will put a pause on it the next go around. Wait and see what happens, given that inflation has ticked down. But still, remember, it's still double their target rate. So I'm still in the camp that there's a strong possibility that they will, but Look, it looks like most economists disagree with where I am on this one.
Do you think that they're done for the rest of the year, though?
No, no, they can't be. I mean, they have to get their inflation numbers down, and unless they keep a very, very steady hand on this one, it can sneak up on them again. And so they have to be very vigilant on this.
Right. And what that does, what we've seen that do is kind of hurt our community banks, some of the regional banks. We've had 3 bank failures this year,
Um,
and kind of destabilizing them. And that's kind of the lifeblood for our small businesses and where they're getting their funding from, their capital to run their businesses. Talk to us a little bit about some of the issues within the banking industry and access to capital for small businesses.
Look, our small businesses are dependent on access to credit through our regional and community banks. It's the lifeblood, really, for our small businesses. And so this has been very, very tough this past year on these regional and community banks. We did see a few of those actually go under. If the rates continue to go up, I'm afraid that we will see more and more go down. But we can't be as callous as Mr. Wonderful Kevin O'Leary is every time he's on any interview. He talks about how unnecessary the 4,600 regional banks are, and we only need 3 or 5 national banks. He obviously doesn't remember or know what it's like to be a small business owner, where the local access to credit is how they access credit. They don't go to New York. They don't have Citibank on their side. And I think it's we have to be really careful, because if we lock out small businesses out of credit, we're not going to have small businesses in our communities.
Absolutely. And our small business IQ poll certainly shows that small business owners are concerned about access to credit. They are concerned. 2/3 of them are concerned that the rising interest rates will continue to reduce their access to credit, because of that destabilization of the regional banks.
Yeah.
It's just it's it still is a shaky economy. It still is very concerning for what I like to call the guys on the front line, guys and gals on the front
Yeah.
line, and
Yeah.
that's our small business owners.
Yeah. That's right.
I think it's interesting that as we get further and further away from all of the COVID spending, clearly we needed some COVID spending to both spur the economy and to help either small businesses or individuals who lost their jobs. But I think people forget that the reason we're suffering from this inflation is that Congress went nuts and the Biden administration went nuts with giving away money. And when you do that, it causes inflation. That there is a negative consequence to doing those things. And I think everybody thinks, oh, it's great when the government helps out, but they forget that there are consequences to that. And I think we're seeing that right now. And all this inflation is essentially a tax um, on the American public and small businesses for the money that was sent out. Like there's just, there's going to be a reaction in the economy when you do that.
But weren't we told that that's all free money?
We were told that.
So now it's time to pay the price, and we're feeling it for sure. And Americans are feeling it in our checkbooks overall. And I just don't know if consumers can take this much longer. I mean, credit card debt is at its highest levels. Savings rates are some of its lowest levels. You look at auto loan delinquencies; they're at probably record levels now. I mean, it really is not boding well for the economy going forward. And when you look at just Wall Street overall and our big companies, they're actually having what's called an earnings recession. I mean, they're suffering right now the flow through of all these higher, commodities flowing through their balance sheets and P and Ls. And so I think this is going to be a rough third and fourth quarter.
Yeah, I hope you're not totally right, but we'll see. We'll have to see how things go. So with that, it is time for our interview with Dina Rubio. I'm so excited to have her on. As I mentioned, she's the owner of Don Ramon Restaurant in West Palm Beach, Florida. Dina and her family fled the Sandistas in Nicaragua and came to America in 1981. She received her degree in interior design and worked in that field for 11 years before opening Don Ramon Restaurant with her husband, Juan, who is an immigrant from Cuba. Dina, welcome to Main Street Matters, America's small business megaphone.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Great. How's the weather down in West Palm Beach?
Beautiful as usual.
There's a lot of people who will be jealous of you come the fall.
Uh,
Right
this
now,
is
they probably
Florida.
think it's a little warm.
It is actually. It's in the 90s already and it's 10 o'clock.
Yeah, exactly. Well, thanks for joining Alfredo and I. We just launched Main Street Matters, and it gives us an opportunity to talk to small business owners like yourself and talk about their story. But we were really looking forward to having you on specifically because you have a very interesting story to talk about coming from Nicaragua. And I was wondering if you could spend a couple of minutes talking about, your background and where you come from and kind of your small business story overall.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity and giving a lot of the small businesses that opportunity to people to hear our stories. Yes, I came to West Palm Beach directly from Nicaragua 42 years ago. And it's been a journey. My family and I came from the five of us, my parents and my two sisters in 1981 because we had a revolution of the Sandinistas back in the 79. So it took us about a year and a half for us to prepare the right paperwork to be sponsors and sponsored by my aunt who brought us here to West Palm Beach. We were escaping because things were not looking good in our country. My parents and I lived through the war because there were Sandinistas were trying to get Somoza out, and this is because they were trying to implement a socialist government. So my parents decided that that was not for us, and luckily we were able to arrive to the United States. It's been 42 years since I arrived, thinking that we were coming for a year and a half while the things got stable in Nicaragua. But it never happened. It's been 42 years since the same people have been there in power. They call themselves the ones that are for the people, but they were there for themselves. And that's what they've been there for that long. So being here in a new country, it was a little difficult at the beginning. My parents started working in a factory. My dad used to be a professor in a university and worked for the government, not really directly in a political position, but in a department where the roads and, like the FDOT here in Florida. So my mom had a business and we had to start from scratch here. So my mom used to do the graveyard shift, so she could take care of us during the day. And my dad used to work in a factory. He used to come with an overall all stinky with all those chemicals. But it was for us to give us opportunities to be somebody in this country. They always instill on us to go to college. So they were making the sacrifices for us to be able to do so. So I did, we started college, and that's where I met my husband. And we've been married for 35 years, and together we've been fighting, working a lot, and trying to get somewhere with the opportunities and taking advantage of the opportunities that this country gives. Because my husband is also from Cuba, and we also he's from Cuba, so he also lived the revolution, the communist in Cuba, probably worse than I did. So we both knew where we came from, and we saw that there were so many good things that this country had to offer, so many opportunities. So we worked hard and decided to have our own business. And we started that maybe, I will say, about 32 years ago. That's when we started in different branches. We have this particular location, the one that at that point, we had 3 locations. Right now, we only have 1 restaurant. It is, we've been there in that particular one for 24 years. It's a Cuban restaurant because my husband, like I said, it's a Cuban. So there's a lot of that community in this area that came in the 1960s when Castro took over. So we established our business here, and we've been working, really hard. It's a complex industry.
Yeah. So Dina, I know that you've spoken very eloquently in the past, and you've spoken before Congress committees about the challenges that you have been facing, especially over the past few years with, inflation, getting labor. Um, why don't you kind of tell us a little bit about what you're seeing over the past couple of years? Excuse me. And now that contrasts it with the Trump administration.
Yes, it's been well. The business itself is a challenge, to be honest with you. It's having
Right.
our own business. It requires a lot of sacrifices, especially in this industry because it's a 7 days a week type of industry, no holidays, and um, finding workers. It's difficult as well. It's just finding the right proper person to help you and to work
Right.
as a team. In the so we had up and downs. We went to a recession in 2008, 9, 10. It took us a little while to get out of that. Where and uh, that in a lot of small businesses, sometimes when we go through those difficult times, you
Hmm.
just working hard to make payroll. So we had gone through those times before, but in the last 2 years, what we had experimented, it's the lack of help, and that really increased. I mean, normally as an owner, you have to fill all those whatever positions you were to have to wear many hats, but
Right.
this increased for the last 2.5 years since COVID. It was really at hard, difficult times. We had to reinvent ourselves during COVID because we were closed. Fortunately, we got Governor DeSantis, that let us open rather quickly. Um, but we went during that period of time. We had to figure out how could we survive. So we increased our takeout sales. We did no contact. We actually created outside a a little park and dine. That's what we called it
Mm.
because the people couldn't come in. So we created this park and dine area that people parked every other space, and people brought their own tables, and my husband played music outside. So we
That's
did it
great.
for, I mean, this is in March. So it was cool. It was cooler. I don't know if we could have done that in August here in Florida, but
Right.
bless you. So that was a way you had to come up and figure out how to make it. And then President Trump helped us with helping with the COVID aid, so we can retain our employees during that time because really didn't have a lot of work for them, but we were trying to create it through the takeouts and doing outside dining.
Right.
So we had to adapt ourselves, but then we received some money so we could keep our staff working. And finally, because of Governor DeSantis opened up a business, they were able to come back to work, and that was the trouble. We were having a hard time getting people coming back to work. Um, just in even they were didn't come because they were afraid that they will get sick, either because they were actually, avoiding to get my customers sick, or people were not coming to the restaurant because they were afraid
Hmm.
of getting infected. So it took us a while to go through that period, but we finally managed. Thanks God, we became affiliated with all those agencies that did pick up, tablets like Uber Eats, Grubhub, and Delivery Dudes. Anybody that would offer those service, we became partners with. And we
Right.
knew that they took a lot of they were like a silent partner because they were taking a lot of our profits. So we were trying to figure out how to deal with that as well. But we finally got established, and in the last years, we um, we were able to go over that hump, and now we were into the part that trying to get the employees, And now with the inflation coming up because nobody wanted to work, so supplies were scarce or still scarce, to
Hmm.
be honest to you. We had some products that were totally discontinued. We had some products that they were extremely expensive because people also didn't have employees, so they have a harder time producing them. So
Have you
it
seen your
became
menu prices go up as
we
a
had to
result of that?
increase them. We had to increase them because we had just an example. We have a box of limes that were usually $24, $28. They were up to
Right.
$89, $90 a box of limes. So it was not only double; it was three times as much. It
This
has
is
come
when you
down
started
since then.
using lemons for mojitos, right?
Yes, limes. Yes, we had to substitute. They don't taste the same, but we substituted that. The meat that we use for our churrasco, it went from $7 a pound to $14 a pound. Now, how do you manage that? There's only so much. I mean, in a restaurant, especially like ours, it's a family restaurant. The margin, the profit, it's so small, so you can only absorb so much lost.
Dina,
We
what would you say the margins are? Like what from a on a dollar of sales, what do you think you get to keep as the owner?
we probably 5%, but remember a lot of this percentage you have to keep in a little on the side because there's always something comes that breaks up, so or something that you need to improve or change. Especially in our case, we own the building and it's an older building, so we need to make sure that we always have that little cushion to provide us for unforeseen expenses. So it's not that we pocket it all, it's just that we need to have that little cushion always for those kind of emergencies or needs.
Yeah, Dina, I have to tell you, that's one of the most frustrating things that, I've heard from politicians on the left about, how these, restaurateurs, for example, how much money they make and, that you're not paying your fair share and that you're not paying your employees enough because you're really greedy. And he's pushing for 15, 16, $17 minimum wages. I mean, clearly, first of all, coming from a man who's never worked in an actual job or run a business, is really kind of ironic. But it's just so frustrating to hear because what you're saying is true all around. Anybody who owns a restaurant business understands this. Those profit margins are anywhere between 3 to 5%. And to your point, then you actually
Right.
have to, keep a cushion because you do have things that come up. Your refrigerator breaks down, the ovens break down. I mean,
Absolutely.
you always are challenged with something. And by the way, it's like they forget that you actually are the ones that put the initial capital in to begin with, whether it was a loan, whether it was a savings, whether it was loans from family members. I mean, you guys took that risk and you guys deserve a reward for that risk. It's very easy to be an employee because you just show up, you get paid, and you walk away at the end of the day. But as a small business owner, and I was one of them, I had two small businesses myself. I remember what it was like. It's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You never walk
Absolutely.
away from your business because it's yours. If you don't work on it, if you don't think about it, nothing happens, right?
Correct. You're absolutely right. I mean, we're the ones that are there that thinking if something breaks, if the door doesn't lock or the alarm went off.
Right.
So
Right.
it is all this constantly working. And you're right, it's 24 hours. Even if we're not at the location, we
Right.
still have to be thinking, the who's coming today, the potatoes are right, but they're the wrong size or the wrong color.
Right.
I mean, and even somebody spills something in the on the floor, clean it up before somebody comes. I mean, it's a constant thing. It's not in the restaurant business. It's not a long term project. It's an everyday. You come and it's start brand new, new customer. The same
Yeah,
customers but new service. So
that's right.
it's this industry. It's very complicated. I used to work as an interior design from 9 to 5, and it was nice, but
Right.
this type of commitment 24 hours a day, like you mentioned, I mean, it's really rough. And it's that like having a partner, it's just they couldn't collect their taxes, and that's it.
Right.
They never were there to know if the meat didn't arrive, or maybe it was, we need to make sure that it was kept in the cool. If your refrigerator breaks down, you need to figure out what to do, who to call, or how to fix it, and where to store it. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a
Yeah.
constant.
Yeah.
Dina,
It's really frustrating. Go ahead.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. Dina, when you think about Nicaragua, or even your husband coming from Cuba, and if you had to run a business there versus even the challenges that you have here, I mean, it's like night and day. I mean, you're talking about socialism, communism, and where the government, can just come and take your business at any time. And yet we tend to see younger generations more and more support moving our country towards socialism. I mean, having come from Nicaragua, and even your husband, I mean, how do you all react to that? And what do you think of that? Why do
Uh,
you think it's happening?
do you know what? It's really scary because when I was in school, some of my classmates, they were rooting. I mean, when people are young, my dad was a professor in the university, and he saw it, and that's where they get to the youngsters, because everybody wants to change the world, be happy, we're all the same. And it sounds pretty, it sounds loving, but it's not the truth. These people are not for that. These people are not for equal opportunities. These people, they want to put everybody in the same plane, but instead of raising people to a higher level, they put everybody at the same level but lower the grade. They don't provide enough education. I remember when I had to go to I don't know, alphabetized, or what's the word? To go and teach people how to read, because they said
Mm.
people are not educated. You have to go and teach people how to read. So they send all these students to the fields to teach them how to read. So my dad didn't let me go to the mountains and do that, but I went to a close enough area that I could stay close to home and teach people how to read. It was a mandatory thing in order to go to college. So the books, they were not like what I was given when I was little, learning how to read. The books was The Revolution Lives, Sandino, it's the best, the socialism, it was more than teaching people how to read. It was indoctrinating people. And
Yeah.
that's what it is all about. It's not really putting people at the same level, it's just putting ideas in these kids' minds that are fresh and young and think they're going to make the whole change in the world. They just put all these ideas in there. And I see the youngsters being now in high school, and I think they started in actually elementary, starting to put all these ideas in them that you see it now flourishing and coming up. It's like what's happening is the same thing that we lived back in Nicaragua, or even worse, that my husband have lived, um, in Cuba. He was
Mm.
already born when the communist was there, but I got to see that change.
Dean, it's crazy to think the similarities, really, the way you're describing it, what you saw there, with the Sandinistas and just the socialists. I mean, it almost sounded like you were talking about us right now, the country, the United
Yes.
States. I mean, but boy, you could pretty much say almost the same things now for us. It's just crazy. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it seems as though we have lessons all across the world of how that model didn't work and doesn't work. Yet we seem to be embracing that here more and more. And unfortunately, our Democrats seem to really be pushing that on all of us.
it, it, and I know that this has been said many times, but you don't see people fleeing from a prosperous country to a communist country,
Right.
and I know everybody says that, but it's the truth. You don't see them. I mean, you see in South America how many people now that are going through from Colombia, from Venezuela, and the influx here
Yeah.
in Florida from those people, residents from those countries coming here. It's amazing because everybody wants to escape. Nobody wants it. Yet
Right.
when they arrive, we're finding the same type of structure, trying to change it to the type of structure that it's left behind in those countries. So,
Dina,
Yeah.
in our
Yeah.
last couple of minutes, what is your message um, to younger generations? I mean, what do you want to tell younger generations about your American dream and why it's so important to protect our free enterprise system?
well, I think mostly I don't think people appreciate what they have here because they always had it. So it takes an effort from, and it took all these years for United States to be what it is today. And it took a lot of sacrifices to be a free country and to be so prosperous with a lot of opportunities. Appreciate it, read about it, know about it, and make sure that you know that it wasn't just because people were here and deserved it, it's because they built it. So I think
Yeah.
there's a lot for us. We have a lot of knowledge, a lot of something to offer as younger people with brand new ideas, brand new um, energy that could make this country be great again, make this country keep growing. And you have it in you. Oh, use that energy to be better, not to go back in time. Or let me rephrase that. Um, just make sure that what you have, I think what you need to do is have that initiative, have that energy, that passion for what you want and fight for it and keep going, be something better, step up from what your parents and your grandparents that gave you already. So move up.
When I
Yeah.
hear
That's
you
great
say
advice.
things like that, and I just think, and I've heard you speak many, many times, at events for us, at other events. How do people react to you carrying that message? Because you don't fit the typical narrative of free enterprise and capitalism and entrepreneurship. You don't fit the typical narrative today, particularly that one party expects you to be. So how do you sort of deal with that?
Well, it's amazing. I think some people are just confused. And because I see it from a lot of people from Latin America that are arrived in here. And because, I'm a Hispanic, I'm a woman, they feel that the word Democrats are the ones that offer you democracy. And I think they don't know what it is because a lot of people that are coming are people that had businesses and they were somebody where they come from. I don't think they realize that what they're I'm not sure if it's language barrier, and I'm speaking in behalf of Hispanics, not general as a woman. I'm just talking particularly for Hispanics. They don't appreciate what this country has to offer and what they left behind.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't even know how to explain it, to be honest to you. You give me that question, and I cannot understand really what is it that they're not seeing.
Yeah. Yeah. I see that all the time. And I mean, when I, run in to different small business owners across the country and immigrant small business owners in particular, they all seem to express a deep appreciation for the opportunity that this country has provided them, and they take advantage of it in the good way, right?
Right,
They leverage it and they are appreciative of it. And you're right, I don't understand. I mean, my parents were immigrants as well. My mom was a housekeeper, my dad was a tailor. We had nothing, I was the first one to finish high school and then college and then grad school, right? And but boy, there was a deep appreciation and love for this country because the opportunities it provided them to give me the opportunity
right.
is just amazing.
Yes. And like I said, my parents would came here and not knowing the language and coming at an older age, an advanced age,
Yeah.
the 40s, it's hard to learn
Yeah.
a new language and get established. And so it is hard, but this country gives you so many opportunities, so many ways
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
grow, to move up, that I
Yeah.
don't know why people don't see it. Some people, they take it for granted, I guess. Maybe that's the
Yeah.
word. That's what I was trying to say, Elaine. That people take it for granted what they have, and not know what not having it means.
Are your parents still living, Dina?
Yes, yes, they are.
They are. So they see
My
how successful you've been,
uh,
and feel good about what they've done, and how they brought you
mm,
here for this opportunity.
my parents are the best support I could ever have. I mean, I've been blessed with them. I mean, they
Mm.
made so many sacrifices for me. I could see my
Yeah.
dad, like I said before, coming in a stinky overall because he was working in a factory with chemicals, and my mom
Mm.
taking the second, the third shift, the graveyard, graveyard shift. And it was just hard to see her, getting up in
Yeah.
the morning, and just kind of making coffee, something, and then going to bed, for us to be able to go to school and go to college, and not leaving us alone, and always trying to be there for us, so not for us not to be alone, and give us the guidance and where we needed to be in life.
Yeah.
So
What a great story. That's incredible.
I
Well, good
I'm
thing that
blessed.
they did what they did, because we got you here, and
Thank you.
you have a great restaurant. I keep telling Elaine, we have to make the trip down there and enjoy some of that terrific terrific food. What city again specifically is it in?
We're West Palm Beach.
West
um
Palm Beach.
West Palm Beach, yes, and Elaine and Jamie have been there.
We have
Missing you,
been there.
Alfredo.
Well, then it's just me, so I will make a trip down there and enjoy some of that wonderful Cuban food. For me, it's pollo a la plancha.
Oh, perfect. Jamie likes the lamb, right?
Yes, the lamb, the lamb special that you had,
Yes,
the
on
shank.
Wednesdays.
Yes, the Wednesday lamb shank. I
Yes,
highly recommend.
yes.
Wonderful,
Well,
Well,
thank you
hope
wonderful.
to
so
see
much,
you.
Dina.
Thank you, guys. It's been a
All right.
pleasure. You have been, and I did not say this, but you have been so amazing to me, and to a lot of the small businesses. You give us a voice, give us an opportunity to speak out and say what we go through. So it's really appreciated, what you've done and what you keep doing it for us.
Happy to do it.
Well, Dina, thanks for joining Main Street Matters, America's small business megaphone. And everyone else, please subscribe to the show at salempodcasts.com or anywhere that you get your podcasts. Thank you so much.
Thank you.